Hi IdleAntiChrist, derived energy here. I'm just going to make a brief video response to you. In this video I will specifically address the first question you posed in your video. I am an antinatalist because I regard sentience as a burden rather than a gift, irrespective of people's subjective values about the quality of their lives at any given moment. People tend to regard the quality of their lives as a function of happiness outweighing suffering in their life, or vice versa. However, I regard this as an animalistic way of judging the quality of one's own life. This is how perhaps a donkey would evaluate the quality of its life, by adding up the carrots it has eaten and adding up the amount of times it has been struck with a stick, finding one to be more salient in their life than another. I find that this common way of appraising the value of human life necessitates a need to view the ontological status or issues of existing and not existing in a delusional way. If you don't exist, then you are not deprived of any carrots and you are not subject to the stick. I see no possible logical or rational way of improving on this state of affairs. When I look up at the moon at night, I see an object in the sky that has no sentient beings on it. There is an utter absence of sentient experience being experienced on that planet, because there is no manifestation of sentience on the moon, due to an absence of sentient beings. In other words, there are no donkeys, there are no carrots, and there are no sticks. How do I feel about this? Well, I see no rational reason to feel sad or regretful that there are no carrots being munched on the moon, because there are no donkeys on the moon who are being deprived of the pleasant sentient experiences donkeys derive from eating carrots. I therefore see no moral obligation on my part to populate the moon with donkeys, assuming of course this was possible. If I was sure that by creating donkeys there would only ever be carrots and no sticks on the moon, then I would struggle to come up with a reason why I would have a moral obligation to refrain from creating any donkeys and placing them on the moon. However, such an act on my part would be done solely to gratify my own needs, and would neither benefit nor harm the donkeys I created. They might feel that I had done them a favour, and be grateful that I had created them. However, for it to be rational for them to feel this way, they would have to explain to me how it was that they would have missed out on the carrots if I had never created them. As prior to creating them they did not exist, this would be impossible. Therefore, I would not have benefited them by creating them. I'll read that again. Therefore, I would not have benefited them by creating them. I would have merely contrived a need for them to enjoy munching on their carrots, and then ensured that this need was completely met. I hope this illuminates for you why feeling glad or grateful that one was born is irrational. One either comes into existence or one doesn't. If one never comes into existence, then one wouldn't be deprived of anything, because experiencing deprivational states is only something that sentient beings can ever experience. Therefore, the commonly held and dogmatic view that life is a gift is erroneous. Talk of life being a gift, a chance, or an opportunity in no way, shape, or form holds up to close rational scrutiny. So far, I have merely addressed the happiness side of the ledger, without bringing into the subject the stick, or the pain and suffering sentient beings are exposed to by coming into existence. Let's go back to my thought experiment. I want to populate the moon with 7 billion carrot-munching donkeys, so that I can enjoy watching them enjoy themselves, but I know that the machine I will use to create the donkeys malfunctions 1 out of 7 billion times. Therefore, I'm aware that if I create 7 billion donkeys, 1 out of that number will not spend its life happily and contentedly munching on carrots, but will instead be continually hit with a stick. Now then, should this give me pause before I activate the machine and create the 6,999,999 carrot-munching donkeys? If I decided to treat the creation of happy and miserable donkeys in an equivocal manner, then I would barely give the ethic considerations a moment's thought. Yes, I would be creating a suffering donkey, but if anybody questions my moral character, I could merely gesture at the 6,999,999 happy and content donkeys and say, well, they seem happy enough. Why should I not be able to create donkeys just because occasionally one doesn't seem to enjoy the experience of being a donkey and in fact finds it insufferable? There is absolutely nothing morally dubious or morally problematic about my actions here. You're just raising objections because you're a depressed loser. Now, if you don't like what I'm doing here, you can always go and kill yourself, as can the suffering donkey that I created. The moral to all this is that the happiness of all the lucky donkeys by no means compensates for the unfortunate donkey that had to spend its life being continually hit with a stick. The billions of donkeys did not need those carrots before I created them. I created their need by creating them, and then ensured that all their needs were met. The unfortunate donkey, however, like the carrot-munching donkeys, had no reason to come into existence for its own sake, and now that it has been created will have to experience the pain and suffering that its creation made it possible for it to feel. If you ask me, derived energy, would I create those 7 billion donkeys? I would give a resounding no as an answer. If I did create those donkeys, my thoughts would go straight to the suffering donkey I had created, and I would regret that I had created that donkey. The existence of the 6,999,999 happy and content donkeys would not assuage my guilt in the slightest. Guess what, IdleAntiChrist? We are those donkeys, but with one vital difference. The happiness-suffering ratio is not the same as in the thought experiment I just outlined, not just in terms of how many happy people there are compared to suffering people, but in terms of how many carrots we munch on and how many times we get belted by a stick. Nowhere near.